Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today is a beautiful Thursday. The sun is shining, but honestly, I am still shivering from the absolute chills I got watching yesterday's episode. We need to sit down, grab a warm drink, and talk about the absolute masterpiece of tension we just witnessed. Let's dive right into it. I feel so incredibly electrified by that final scene at the Geneva safe house, because to me it finally proved that the writers are completely unafraid to pull the rug out from under us. The moment Valentin Cassadine and Carly Spencer secretly arrived in Geneva, my heart was already in my throat. I loved the way the lighting changed when they walked down that sterile, dimly lit European corridor. The cool blue tones of the set design made me feel the physical chill of the location, perfectly mirroring the cold dread pooling in my stomach. They were supposed to be meeting Z, the mysterious head of the WSB, the one person who could finally bring Ross Cullum down. The way I interpret it, this was supposed to be their triumphant moment. Valentin was risking his own freedom, walking right into the lion's den to play his ultimate trump card. But the sheer dread I felt when Valentin pushed that heavy door open and the camera slowly panned across the floor was absolute television perfection. When the camera finally settled on Z's lifeless body, I actually gasped out loud. I think the director's choice to linger on that horrifying image for just a few seconds before showing us anything else was brilliant, because it made me feel the exact same paralyzing shock that Carly and Valentin were experiencing. Z was supposed to be the untouchable white knight of the WSB, the highest authority, the absolute safety net. Seeing him murdered in his own safe house instantly shattered every single rule we thought this storyline was playing by. In my opinion, this is exactly what a high-stakes soap opera storyline should do. It strips away the safety nets. It leaves our heroes completely exposed. I feel like this specific visual, the supposedly untouchable leader lying dead on the floor, was a masterful way to tell the audience that absolutely no one is safe in this Cold Fusion arc. And then, the absolute terror of the moment Cullum stepped out of the shadows. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we don't recognize this as one of the most iconic villain entrances in recent General Hospital history. The way Cullum emerged from the darkness, his face half obscured by the shadows, holding a gun that was literally still smoking, gave me full-body chills. I believe this is the exact moment the show cemented Ross Cullum not just as a dirty agent, but as an unstoppable, terrifying force of nature. When he smirked and declared that absolutely no one could stop him now, I felt a genuine wave of despair. His line delivery was so chillingly calm, so devoid of any manic energy, which I think makes him infinitely more terrifying. He doesn't need to shout. His smoking gun and the dead body of his superior do all the talking for him. I know a lot of people are saying the storyline is dragging, or complaining that Cullum is being written as too overpowered, but I actually think this level of invincibility is exactly what's needed, because I feel like it forces our legacy characters into completely unprecedented emotional corners. If Cullum were easily defeated, Valentin and Carly wouldn't be pushed to these absolute extremes. The way I see it, you need a villain this ruthless to justify the sheer desperation we are seeing from characters who are usually always in control. Cullum, standing over Z's body, completely unbothered by the fact that he just assassinated the head of the WSB, proves that he is playing a game with zero boundaries. I love that the writers are making him this formidable. It makes the eventual payoff, whenever he is finally taken down, going to feel so incredibly earned and satisfying. Let's talk about Carly's reaction, because I feel like this is the best they've written Carly in years. When the realization hit her that Z was dead and they had walked directly into a trap, her scream of absolute, raw despair shook me to my core. I think the actress's choice to let out that guttural, terrified scream rather than a standard soap opera gasp was brilliant, because it made me feel the sheer weight of her maternal panic. Carly is a character who almost always fights back. She is resourceful, she is loud, she is a fierce survivor. But in that small, claustrophobic room in Geneva, facing a smoking gun and a dead WSB director, she was completely stripped of her power. I believe her scream wasn't just about her own life being in danger. It was the horrifying realization that her daughter's only hope was just extinguished. Every time I rewatched that specific moment where Carly realizes the plan to use Z's power to protect Jocelyn has completely evaporated into thin air, my heart breaks for her. The way I interpret her physical acting in this scene, the way her hands shook, the way her eyes darted frantically from Z's body to Cullum's smug face, it showed a woman whose entire world was collapsing. She had put all her faith in Valentin's strategy. She had believed that this secret trip to Geneva was the magic bullet that would save Jocelyn from Windermere. I feel so deeply connected to Carly's terror here, because the writing has done such a fantastic job of establishing how fiercely she loves her children. To see that fierce protector rendered entirely helpless by Cullum's trap is devastating, and it is phenomenally compelling television. And then there is Valentin. The way I see it, Valentin Cassadine has never been more tragic or more beautifully written than he is in this very moment. I feel so incredibly heartbroken for him because, to me, this scene finally proved the absolute depths of his redemption arc. He was willing to sacrifice everything. He knew that reaching out to Z meant exposing his own survival, which would likely result in him being thrown right back into Steinmauer prison. He was willing to give up his freedom, his time with Charlotte, and his life in Port Charles, all to ensure Carly and Jocelyn were safe. I think the writer's choice to have his noble sacrifice blow up in his face is utterly brilliant, because it makes me feel the crushing weight of his failure. He played his final, ultimate trump card, and Cullum just shot it dead before his very eyes. I loved the specific look of absolute, hollow defeat that washed over Valentin's face when Cullum threatened to frame him for Z's murder. I think the dialogue here was razor sharp. Cullum didn't just threaten to kill them. He threatened to use Z's death to destroy Valentin permanently unless he handed over the entire cold fusion research project. In my opinion, this is a masterclass in villainous leverage. Cullum knows exactly how to corner a Cassadine. If Valentin is framed for the assassination of the WSB director, he becomes the most wanted man on the planet. He won't be able to protect Carly, he won't be able to save Jocelyn, and he will lose Charlotte forever. I feel like the psychological warfare Cullum is waging in this scene is even more brutal than the physical violence of the gunshot. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we don't appreciate the incredible dynamic between Valentin and Carly in this Geneva safe house. There are two characters who are so used to being the smartest people in the room, the ones who always have a backup plan or a hidden ace up their sleeve. But right now, they are just two terrified parents staring down the barrel of a gun. I feel like this shared trauma is going to bond them in a way that nothing else ever could. When Cullum issued his ultimatum about the cold fusion research, the way Valentin instinctively stepped slightly in front of Carly, a subtle, protective gesture, made me smile despite the horror of the situation. It shows that even in the face of total defeat, his instinct is to shield her. I believe these small, character-driven acting choices are what elevate this storyline from a standard spy thriller to a deeply emotional character study. I know some viewers have been critical of the cold fusion project itself, calling it too sci-fi or too disconnected from the hospital drama, but I actually think this MacGuffin is exactly what's needed, because I feel like it perfectly honors the grand, sweeping espionage legacy of General Hospital. Think back to the Ice Princess or the Weather Machine plots. This show is at its absolute best when it blends grounded family emotional stakes with high-octane global spy narratives. In my opinion, having Cullum demand the cold fusion research over Z's dead body anchors the sci-fi element in real, terrifying human consequences. The research isn't just a plot device anymore, it is the literal ransom for Valentin's life and Jocelyn's safety. I feel so invested in this research now because the writers have successfully tied it directly to the survival of characters I deeply love. Let's talk about the ripple effects this Geneva disaster is going to have back in Port Charles, specifically on Spoon Island. The way I interpret this scene, the most terrifying aspect isn't even what's happening in the room with Cullum, it's what this means for Jocelyn Jacks. I feel so incredibly anxious for Jocelyn right now, because she is sitting in captivity at Windermere, likely holding on to the hope that her mother is out there finding a way to save her. I think the dramatic irony of the audience knowing that Carly's rescue mission has catastrophically failed, while Jocelyn remains in the dark, is agonizing in the best possible way. Jocelyn's safety has never been more fragile. With Z dead, the one absolute authority who could have ordered Cullum to stand down is gone. I believe this setup is going to force Jocelyn to realize that no one is coming to save her, which will push her to become her own hero. I feel like the pacing of this entire episode was a masterclass in building dread. The writers didn't rush the reveal. They let us experience the hope of the Geneva trip first. We saw Valentin and Carly plotting, we saw the determination in their eyes, we bought into the idea that Z was the solution. I think the choice to build up our hope just to violently tear it down with a smoking gun is why I am so passionately in love with where the show is heading right now. It takes real courage from a writing team to let their villains win this definitively in the middle of a storyline. I genuinely think that by letting Cullum completely outmaneuver Valentin, the show has raised the stakes to a level we haven't seen in years. It makes me feel like absolutely anything can happen next, and that unpredictability is the lifeblood of a great soap opera. The sheer audacity of Cullum's blackmail demanding the cold fusion research while standing over the body of his murdered boss is something I can't stop thinking about. I feel like this proves Cullum isn't just a rogue agent. He is a megalomaniac who truly believes he is untouchable. And the terrifying part is, right now, he is. I love the way the scene ended, with that suffocating silence following Carly's scream, leaving Valentin staring at the smoking gun as he realized he had lost his very last card. The way I see it, Valentin is a master chess player who just realized his opponent flipped the entire board over and set it on fire. I think the emotional devastation of a master strategist realizing he has been completely outplayed is one of the most compelling things you can put on television, and James Patrick Stewart is playing it to absolute perfection. As I look ahead to tomorrow's episode, I am literally vibrating with anticipation. How are Carly and Valentin going to get out of this room? Will Valentin agree to hand over the cold fusion research, knowing the catastrophic global implications, just to save Carly and Jocelyn? I believe he will, because the way I interpret Valentin's character growth, his love for his chosen family, has finally eclipsed his need for power or control. I feel so deeply invested in this impossible choice. I know a lot of people are stressed about how dark this has gotten, but I actually think this darkness is exactly what makes the light shine brighter. When our heroes finally do find a way to outsmart Cullum, and I have to believe they will, it is going to be the most euphoric, hard-earned victory in the history of this show. I cannot wait to see how they write their way out of this impossible corner.